Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL to get 5% off of your sale. And then also by Coalesce Apparel, where you can get really cool t-shirts and stuff, and use the code CASUALMAGIC to get 10% off your sale. And by Archidekt, a deck hosting website that doesn't really sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them. And now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Coalesce Apparel, CoolStuffInc, Archidekt, and also Quiver Time. I love my sponsors, they love me, and you all apparently do too, because my shirt totally sold out at Coalesce, and that is the coolest thing that's literally ever happened to me, let me tell you.
I bought one and forgot to wear it.
You're not supposed to talk yet, Jason. It's okay. But, yeah, like, dude, I was at the Command Fest Richmond this past weekend as of recording, which means I flew all the way across the country to Virginia to go to the first of the season of Commander events that they're having. And I saw like 12 people wearing my shirts. And I've never seen that before or anticipated that or run into the idea that some physical human somewhere paid money for this thing and put it on. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. It blew my mind. And to see my stickers all over the place, see my t-shirts all over, it was one of the coolest things I've ever like. I've been in media and this content stuff for years and years and years and years and years, but seeing your face and things on other people is wild. Absolutely wild. So, but Coalesce has reordered my t-shirt. Go ahead and order it. And if you put in the code CASUAL, you get like 10% off. And you can buy a billion other shirts there. They're really cool. I really like them and I want them to thrive. Anyways, this week is different from most of my weeks because this one is not a standard Magic personality like so many of my shows have been. This time around, I decided to be a little self-indulgent and invite one of my dear, dear friends who I've known for many, 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 many years. Used to be one of my coworkers, I think, or if not direct coworker, we've definitely worked under the same umbrella many, many times in the video games industry. And who I helped bring into Magic randomly. And so I thought it would be really interesting both to get your perspective on the new D&D set, but also on your trek into Magic itself from long time being in video games. So my guest today is Jason Wilson, who used to be like editor-in-chief at GameSpot or he's been editor-in-chief for like half of the video game websites you've ever seen.
Editor-in-chief. I'm a managing editor.
Managing editor, senior editor, whatever. Dude who tells people what to write, editor, for like a dozen different gaming websites and magazines that you may have seen in your life. And he has written articles that even if you haven't noticed, you've definitely read. And he's basically been in the RPG space for 20 blah years now.
Almost 20 years, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been playing RPGs since I picked up D&D in 1983.
93?
83.
I was gonna say, I'm like, there's no way I've been playing D&D before you.
No.
Like you've got like a good handful of years on me still, man. But you and I have also played many games together, and we've been friends for a long time because we love traditional RPGs and video game RPGs.
The first time we met was on what was then Role Players Realm, the podcast we had at GamePro that Kat Bailey was hosting, and we were talking D&D. And I remember we were outside the building, and I'm going, Shivam, how come I have never really talked to you before?
Right?
This was like 2010.
God, was it that long ago that Kat had... Yeah, because we had known each other vaguely, and then we just kind of like had a show about D&D, which you might or might not know I'm familiar with and can talk quite a bit about.
Just a bit.
And then we've just been friends ever since because we live also very close to each other and have kids of similar age and also just like nerding about things. And I'm really interested because you've got a unique perspective on Magic. One in that you have a fundamental and core understanding about how video games work and how RPGs work and how like just systems and the notion of games works. Like You and I, we've both been journalists in this field. We both know what it's like to look at a game for the first time and be like, what's the on ramp like? What's it like for a new player walking in blindly to pick this up? Because that's the sort of thing that we have to think about when we're like writing an article, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's one thing to be like, okay, if you've played every Final Fantasy game, then you will know how to play this one, as opposed to if you've never played a Final Fantasy game, because guess what? Kids are born every year who've never played every Final Fantasy game. How hard
No,
is it going to be? And it's like sometimes we in the West we get this feeling when games like Persona come out of nowhere, and we're like, oh, they've this is built off of 30 years of Shin Mega 10 games, and we don't know anything about the weird spell system in Mega 10 games, but they expect us to know because they've been doing these for 1,000 years, right? Um, Magic is the same way, right? Magic is turning 30 next year, and that means that it has a lot of cruft, a lot of rules baggage, a lot of things that don't make sense. And I know I know that your on ramp into Magic was roughly like, they've been sending me free things because I'm the managing editor of a site and I'm on promo list. Here's boxes of cards. What do I do with them, Shivam?
so it was. So I love telling the story of how I got into Magic. So this goes back many, many years to
Mm,
Magic's birth. So I remember when Magic came out. My brother and a couple of his friends played it. I didn't. I played Spellfire. I assume someone in your I
Spellfire.
assume someone in your audience knows Spellfire. If you
I
don't
still
know,
have a full set of Dragonlance Spellfire cards.
yeah, I wish I had my set. So Spellfire was at the time TSR's competing card game against Magic, all based on D&D, and it was fun. It was cool, but it fizzled out. It never gained any traction. Magic just took off. I played it because I was terrified that Magic was going to kill D&D.
Man, remember those days?
Yes.
There, because like I used to live in the TSR chat rooms back when that was like 1997, 96, 97, when it was still new. And I remember being like hardcore D&D second edition player or whatever, but also a Magic player. And the flame wars that were in the old Usenet boards and the old chat rooms between dice chuckers and card floppers, that was just like the eternal struggle of like, whose game is supreme? Is it going to be Magic? Is it going to be
But
D&D?
don't you remember? You go to a shop and there'd be people playing Magic, and the D&D folk would look at them and go,
Oh, they'd be
"Arr."
sneering, there would be slurs that I mean, it was violent, right? Like, we hated each other, like, "Pff, what is this baby game for babies you're playing over there? We're over here doing
Yeah.
real man games, like killing orcs and stuff." It was so
Yeah.
funny. I mean, in hindsight, it's absolutely hilarious, but it was deadly serious then.
Hmm.
And
So
yeah,
I set Spellfire down when it fizzles out. I don't pick up Magic.
because
I
Spellfire sucked.
Yeah. Well, I love some of its ideas, but it sucked. And
The
then of
pictures,
course,
okay, so I'm sorry, I don't mean to
yeah.
tangent off,
Let's
but
tangent.
Spellfire's wildest thing was that all the artwork, despite being D&D, the artwork was just literally photos of people from inside TSR dressed up in cosplay. It was so bad. It was
Some of
so
it was
bad.
bad, and then others were just pictures of things from the books.
Yeah. Oh
Like
god.
so I dabble with Star Wars. Don't really get too deep into it. Don't play
Cuz
Magic. Magic goes, and Wizards of the Coast buys and saves Dungeons and Dragons.
right? Like,
So instead of
that
killing it, it's
was
its savior.
that was traumatic. The day that WotC went and bought
I
TSR,
remember.
because everybody was like, "Oh, we straight lost, man. If they can buy us outright, we have died. It's over." But it was wild because, like, I remember, because TSR had tried desperately to find ways to compete against Magic. Magic was eating TSR's lunch, and they were like, we're going to, we'll make a card game version of Dragonlance for the Fifth Age, which was really fun, but also not at all what D&D players wanted, and Magic
Nope.
players were not interested. And they're like, we'll do what was that Dragon Dice game that they had? A collectible dice game where you could throw D20s and like do some neat dice
Yeah,
stuff.
I remember that one. I don't remember its name because I
Yeah,
never
it
bought
was
it.
I think it was actually called Dragon Dice. It
It
was
may have just
weird
been
and it was
that. Yeah.
bad. It was cool idea, but not a good game. And then like Spellfire and all these other things. And then Magic's just like, we have bajillion dollars. We're just going to buy you. Because I remember when Ryan Dancy came over and he was like, what did you guys do to this? Like DSR used to have a legacy, and now you're garbage trash. And then they came up with third edition, and it's basically saved Dungeons and Dragons forever.
Yes, and it's so funny because it reminds me of being conquered in a war and being occupied territory.
Yes, that's what it felt like to us because we were young and dumb and didn't know what that actually meant.
Yeah, and it was weird, but over the years, I'm very grateful it happened because then D&D probably would have just at that point. I don't know if anyone else who could have bought it at the time would have been able to keep it alive all these years.
Yeah, and it's wild because like D&D is now in like one of the greatest periods it's ever had, right?
Hmm.
Like
I think it's
it's
better than it was in the 80s.
well, like okay, the 80s. I did not. Second edition. Okay, so first edition was a setting of like it laid the groundwork. He gave us rules. It was cool. Second edition is the set era where they're like, you have rules. Let's give you awesome campaign settings and worlds and stories to
Hmm.
tell. But the rules were not great. Third
No,
edition was
and
like,
then
okay,
they made them worse by trying to fix them
yeah.
with skills and powers.
Oh god, skills and powers was so broken. Friggin' Elven. Who the hell were the magic users? Spell swords. What are they
Yes,
called?
spell
The
swords.
spell blades or something like that. They were terribly broken. But yeah, and then third edition's like, okay, what if we actually fix the system from the ground up and gave you all the companion worlds and let you
Bye
make a fully
bye,
modular thing?
Echo.
Third ed was my beloved. Fourth edition's like everybody plays WoW. What happens if we turn D&D into WoW? And it's like,
Yeah, I played fourth edition once and never touched it.
if fourth edition was a phenomenal miniatures game and a
Yes,
phenomenal tactical battle game
yes,
and a really good like it went back to the old days of D&D of like if you're doing chainmail, if you're doing like actual miniatures based combat adventures, it's hella fun.
it's the
Board games
grognard
in fourth
stuff.
edition were hella fun. I did not enjoy it from a storytelling perspective,
Nope.
and it killed my game group. But suddenly, out of nowhere, fifth edition is now the most popular D&D setting of all time.
Hmm.
Like people get paid billions of dollars to stream this stuff on D&D. People are watching other people play D&D
Well, not only that,
religiously.
but then they're turning that what they're watching into a full fledged company and making books.
How wild is that? Like
This is
imagining
fantastic.
it's like when I was a kid, if you told me that D&D would be so popular that multiple different people could run D&D campaigns weekly and people would tune in like a TV show, I would have thought you were high.
Yeah,
Like straight up. And I mean, even then I still have hangups about listening to other people play. I would rather be doing it myself. But
same,
I appreciate that it
same.
exists for the people who enjoy it because holy crap, it's keeping D&D alive. I'm happy.
Here's what I do. I don't always listen, but I always download and I always run it. And if it's a YouTube thing, I always turn it on and I let it play in the background.
Just so that they can get that number click because it's worth it, man. I'm so
It
like
is. It
for
is.
us grognards who've been doing this for a long time, it is the great we're living in the
Well,
golden age.
not only that, but countless people like myself have D&D to thank for more than just game and more than friends. For example, so when I got into the game in 1983, I was at a new school. It had been less than 2 years after my mother was killed. Uh, my dad had remarried, and it was a very hard time for me. And
Sure.
then one of my lifelong friends since introduced me to D&D. I remember playing with his brothers and their friends at his house the first time. I rush home and I tell my parents, I need this red box. This was the basic red box with the
Mm.
dragon on it, the Larry Elmore art, the great stuff. This is the intro box that I'm sure many of you listening to this have seen, have played, or maybe even bought
Well,
when it was reissued.
let's not be hasty, dude. That red box is probably older than 2/3 of my listening base.
Then you might be right. So I play it with my dad. He doesn't get it. That's fine. I play it with my friends. The first full game I had a human who was a magic user and an elf who was a warrior. And then the elf dies, and we reanimate the elf as a zombie so that we can bring him home.
Hmm.
And
That's
then we
cool.
tried to get him resurrected, but then he failed his resurrection check. Back when you had fails for those kind of things. And remember, in this edition, you could use raised dead on elves. It didn't work.
Ah, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, because and then there were things like, oh yeah, you have spell resistance, so my cure doesn't work on you.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you have magic resistance.
Yeah.
But so it brought me to a group of dear friends, and really gave me something to grasp onto at a time where I was struggling as a child. And I've talked with other people about this, both at WotC and just in the D&D community. And so many people have stories about this where D&D provided them an outlet for
Yeah.
when they were in pain.
Well, it's because the thing is, like, D&D lets you be somebody that you're not. It lets you escape the mundane world that we're trapped in and be able to expand the things that you wish were better about yourself, explore a world and have agency over what's in your life. So
Hmm.
when the rest of your life is careening out of control, having agency over this portion of your life gives you stability, gives you strength, and it lets you rebuild the rest of your life because you've got this thing there. You're like, if I can control this, then I can control all of that. Like, I mean, for a lot of people, like, I mean, that's what D&D was for me. Like when I was growing up in, the one minority in like deep Massachusetts and like having no other friends except for the guy who taught me to play D&D, that and like to learn how to be able to be confident and be exuberant and be like outside of the shell that I was stuck in. But a lot of us also found that from Magic because Magic gives you the same kind of agency and control over this kind of card game, this system, and like what you do in the game gives you control over it, which helps you build your social skills, build your charisma, build your ability to communicate with other people. And like, so I find that these games, more than even video games, like a lot of people find them in video game stuff, this kind of stuff, but video games being more solitary experience. I feel like D&D forcing you to be a group experience, Magic forcing you to play with another player or two, it helps. Sometimes hurts, but it helps you actually learn how to interact with humans, right? And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that the strength that we could draw upon. Like, look, Balthor the exuberant can go out there and fight a paladin, then why can't I? Right? Like, why can't
Hmm.
I go take out the dragon? My dragon just happens to be, the angry math teacher, but I can handle them.
Yeah. So, let's fast forward to 2018, and this is when Arena goes into closed alpha or closed beta. I can't remember which one. But so
Sure.
Magic wants me to check it out and play it, and Wizards Codes gets me into it, and I enjoy it, but I kind of fall off. And then they, like you said, they've sent me some cards to try to make a deck, try to get into Magic, try to understand the mechanics of Magic. And it wasn't until you sat me down and what's it 2019, I believe.
Yeah, one of my birthday parties.
No, no,
No, it wasn't. It
no, it was
was
one of our board game parties.
oh yeah, so every year for a long before the pandemic, I used to have a lot of board game parties. I used to have, and my birthday party would be a full
Mhm.
day con where I would just invite everybody over and we would just play board games all day, board card and video games,
Yeah,
like do chaos drafts with Magic and play
yeah.
Commander.
And
So
then
you had seen me for years playing Magic in the
yeah,
corners.
and it was like, oh, I need to sit down and try. So another one of our friends, Dan Shu,
Yeah,
used to have this big board game gathering that I would help him out with, and we would do it. We did it at my community center,
yeah.
and in
Dan
the
Shu, of
corner.
course, former editor of Electronic Gaming Monthly and dear friend of both of ours.
Yeah, now he's running editorial Blizzard. Um, so so we're sitting there in the corner, and you finally we bring out two decks. I don't remember what you played, but I played a green Stompy deck.
I think what it was that I had brought the Arch Enemy set. Like, there was a pre-cons I had. There were
Yeah,
3 pre-constructed decks, and I brought the Arch Enemy set, which was Nicol Bolas versus Gideon, Nissa, and whoever, Chandra or something. And yeah, I gave you the green set, and I picked like I think white or one of the other ones, and we
I'm
just
sure it
like,
was white because it's you.
well, yeah, you took my green decks. Of course, who else am I going to play? Um,
So and we had a blast. It was fun. And I picked up mechanics pretty well. Then I started playing games on Marina, and I really got into it.
Yeah,
Really
man, it
got
was
into
so funny too because like I remember after that, like Shu got into Magic, and then him and Sean Baby got into Magic, and then like the whole crew started kind of buying cards and stuff. And I'm like, look at this! I've brought like some of the greatest like internet
it.
nerds into the nerdiest part of the
And
internet.
then, you probably want to link to this, but I wrote one of my favorite pieces I ever wrote was about me getting into Magic as a 44-year-old. And it's funny because it was like there was this very small, very loud group that says, "Why did you have to call yourself a virgin with Magic? Don't we have enough problems with that?" And I'm like, dude, I'm married with 2 kids. I don't care. So I got into zombies and I built zombie decks on Arena and I tried to build zombie decks with the cards I had. But then I discovered that Janktown was my way. That's what I wanted to do. And I found that I am a Timmy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't care about winning or losing. I just want to have fun and I just want my stuff to do its thing.
Yes, that's pretty Timmy right there. It's like, well, Timmy really means you want to have your big, crazy, explosive turns and put out your mega monsters and have like all the like. I think you're aiming more for the casual space more than Timmy because, but you are a Timmy, which is like I want. Okay, let's stop for a second. Let me explain for the audience who might not know. The Magic has these things called psychographics, which I've actually gone on to explore in other game spaces too because I think it applies, which is the Timmy, Johnny, Spike kind of triangle here, which is that Timmys want to have like the experience. They want to be like big mega monsters. They want to put out flashy spells. They want to have amazing things happening, big explosive things, the dragon, the fireballs, all the cool stuff. Johnnies are like, I'm going to build this crazy Rube Goldbergian invention. These 7 cards are going to work together in some way, and something tricky is going to come out. And my satisfaction comes not from whether I won or lost the game, but if I got the thing to do what it's supposed to
I'm
do.
a Timmy Johnny because
A lot of us are, which is
yes.
like I'm like, look, I've got these 6 cards. If I can get them together and they explode off in a mega combo, if you stifle the combo, but it still happened, I consider that a win because like, look, the thing, it's doing the thing, right?
Yeah.
And then
My
Spike is like, I draw my energy and entertainment from winning, from showing off my skill, from showing off the talent, from showing off the fact that I know how to exploit the rules, how to properly manage the game, properly win the game. So like if you're thinking about like other video games, if you look at Evo competitors or like folks who are like top level FGC type of folks, those are hardcore spikes. People like Daigo, who's like Daigo is known for playing Ryu for a million years, but suddenly Guile's got 2 frame advantage over here and can do a better throw. So he switches over to Guile because he wants to win, even though he's like, iconically tied to this other character. Whereas I, in like a video in a fighting game, I'm a hardcore Timmy. I've got my Ryu. I'm doing my Shinku Hadouken. I'm doing my big thing. It's not going to win, but doing the big flashy fireball makes me happy. So that's the part I'm here for, right? So, and like the Johnnies are the people who would go out and put out like Street Fighter combo videos where they're like, I'm going to use Zangief, and if I jump exactly at this right frame, I can bop off a Sagat's head and then do a air hurricane, like air pile driver that you're technically not allowed to do, but it exploits these 3 frames. That's a Johnny, right? Um, but yeah, so you're definitely leaning. Definitely, I've seen your decks. You're pretty Timmy Johnny,
mhm.
but definitely more Timmy level.
Yeah.
And there's not that's not a negative
Yeah.
or a positive. That's just a what do you get out of the game?
Yeah, like for example, my favorite deck on Arena is a Bolos deck, and it's with Huapti, the Warrior Poet, is my commander, and it's because it's a tokens banner deck, and
Mm,
she's different because why would you use that for tokens? Well, here's my rationale. First of all, any game I get anointed possession out and I'm able to use it, I win. I'm happy. I mean, I might lose, but I win
I mean,
because I get.
Anointed Procession is one of my favorite cards of all time. So you don't,
Oh, of course, of course.
you
So I
don't you don't need to sell me hard on that one.
Yeah, so if I get that out and I'm able to make double tokens like her double 3/3 dinosaurs,
Wait,
I win.
Huatley Warrior Poet,
Yeah, yeah, this is the one where she's
the
sitting there
Boros
next.
one, the red
Yeah,
white one,
yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah. She's got a really cool X ability. So minus X, she does X damage divided between as many targets as you wish, and those can't block. So if somebody has this whole field of blockers, and say you get her up to 7 or 8 because she gets +2 for, and then she gains life of the strength of the best power of the creature you
Yeah,
have. So say you get that up a little bit, and then you do ping, 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 ping to 4 or 5 blockers, and then your whole horde rushes and you kill them in one turn.
that's that's funny as hell because I don't think I've ever seen anybody ever actually play that card except in like limited,
I'm
which
the
is
only person I've ever seen played as a commander in Historic Brawl Arena. I've never
that.
seen anyone else do it.
Yeah, because everybody else is playing crap like Golos and Oko, man.
Well, you never face Golos playing this.
you,
You get put down with the trash tier.
you're definitely not gonna.
But I mean, I've got stuff like Outlaws Merriment, and I've got both Krankos, and you've got Rabble Rousing for the new set, and Galaterno Ketra, so that you can put out 4/4s if you're forced strongest. And then divine visitation, so you can turn all your tokens. You can turn your dinosaurs into angels, and
That's
it's
funny. I'm
yeah.
laughing so hard right now.
Yeah, no, these are the kind of decks I built. My second favorite deck is Crab People, and this one is hard for me because there's no good blue white crab.
Blue white crab?
Yeah, nor are there really any good blue white commanders in Historic Brawl and Arena that aren't about like stopping other people from doing their stuff. I don't want to stop people from doing their stuff. I want them to do their stuff. But the whole thing is about making crabs matter.
Well,
And
yeah, because
so,
blue white's whole point is to be the cops, right?
yeah, I'm not the cop. I'm not
Mm.
the cop. But crabs are blue. So if you want to play with crabs, what do you do? So I just love taking stuff like, high alert, making these big beefy crabs attack you, and it's like, oh, I pinch you to death.
Crabs.
This is
Dude,
and then my newest favorite deck that I've been playing with is also another commander I've never seen anyone do, and it's a witch deck.
a witch deck?
Yes. Oh, I found some really cool interactions here. So let me tell you about this. So Shishara Death Whisperer from the Adventures in Forgotten Realms set. She's an elf warlock. So this is a Gugugari deck, but you're not really going to be
Are you
putting
playing
in.
the normal one or the alchemy one?
Uh, well, I think she got turned into alchemy.
Oh yeah, she had turned into it because of I hate
Yeah.
historic brawl so much.
Uh,
Anyways, yeah.
but I can live with that. So when you gain life, you get to draw a card with her, and then when she hits the field, she blocks, makes someone
Oh,
block.
she forces target creature block and fable.
Yeah. So what's really cool about that is you can proc her the first turn she comes in if you have anything on the board. So I like that. But what also so cool is you can find this great synergy. So of course you want Witch's Oven, so you can sack things and make life, and then you want to put in things like Witch of the Moors, because when you gain life, the opponent has to sacrifice a creature. You want to put things like Deathless Knight, because you can sack that as much as you want, and it comes back to your hand if you gain life. So turn it into food. You're eating its bones. Throw it back in. Um, you know, yeah, no, this is a food deck too. But it's got a bunch of witches and warlocks. It's got ways to summon pests, because whenever they die, they gain life. And what you can also do is use two of the cool witches in this deck. You can use Chittering Witch, and because you're
Mm.
making all these tokens, she can sacrifice a token for -2/-2 to anything your opponent has. And Bogbrew Rich, and what you do is you get your Festering Newt, then that does a -4/-4 when you sacrifice it, or when it dies, one of the two, and then you find a way to bring it back from your graveyard so you have it back. These are
I
the decks I make.
appreciate this.
These are the decks I make. The next deck I'm making,
Okay,
though.
okay. We get it. I don't mean to like cut you off because like I'm super stoked, but I understand. I understand what you're going for. I appreciate the deck building that you're doing here because it's like it's it's my style. This is like we're taking cards that other people are just abjectly ignoring. Like deeply, deeply forgettable cards that people have looked, and you're looking at these like, I'm totally going to turn this into something. That is the like, no joke. That's what the designers of this game dream of, right? They dream that I'm going to make a card and somebody somewhere is going to play it. And one of the things we forget when we're on the internet all the time is that the people who are on the internet with us, the people who are in the magic spheres on Twitter and on like Reddit and whatever, are like the most invested players, the folks who are the most meta, the folks who are the most concerned about playing the best possible thing for any given slot. And we will often miss out on the just simplistic joy of having a witch deck
Mm-hmm.
or having a crab deck or having like just like look at this cool card and I made these cool synergies and they do the thing. Like that Huatley deck, I'm sure I could find a way to make a ridiculously optimized version of, but also that sounds super rad and I love it. I'm glad that somebody found a way to use these cards. Like for me, people taking cards that most of us who are like invested players would look at as draft trash and finding ways to bring life to them is one of my greatest joys.
Well,
I like
and that's me, because I was doing that. I started playing Hearthstone back when it was a closed beta, and I still play Hearthstone, and I started doing that with Hearthstone. But
mm,
that's just the way I am, the way I think. My favorite player character in D&D was a GIF. and I just got this really cool.
A GIF like the hippo?
Yeah, of
Oh, then you
course. I
must
mean,
be.
come on, come
Well, yeah,
on.
dude, I love GIFs. I'm not
Of
gonna.
course. I mean,
I'm not
they
gonna.
want to go in and blow everything up, and they don't really care if they.
They're blunderbusses and cigars, hippos, man. How can you
Mhm.
go wrong,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they blew up their home planet supposedly. So
dude? I'm just glad to see Spelljammer coming back. I'm so excited
me too, but
to see what they're gonna do now.
that's a different
See, I'm
conversation.
I'm miffed that they're like getting rid of the phlogiston, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but
And
it's so that's where I came from Magic, and my thing is I want to have a good time, but I want you guys to have a good time that I'm playing with too.
mm,
So that's why none of my blue decks, with the rare exception order two, have counter spells because I hate playing against counter spells. I don't like them, and I
why?
don't because I don't get to do anything.
Mm.
Because at least if you kill my creature, it comes on the board, might do something, or it's in the graveyard. A counter
You know what's
spell,
funny?
yes, it's in the graveyard, but you didn't let me do anything.
That is word for word what I told somebody this weekend in Richmond when we were discussing deck building philosophy, which is that like we were talking like what's the difference between a counterspell and or no it was even in my episode with Ben Brode even it's like what's the difference between a terror like a Doomblade, a Sword Supplasher, a removal spell, and a counterspell. They both kill your creature, right? Like, and if you're a spikier player or if you're like a objective player, you can look at this and be like, look, you never had the creature anyways, it died. But from an emotional standpoint, I sit there and go like, look, I cast a spell, it hit the table, maybe it had an ETB, maybe it had a something, it lived. At least I was able to complete the spell. Something happened. I put it on the table. If you kill it, you kill it. Whatever. I fair game, right? But if you counter it, then I never got that satisfaction of having the completion of being able to do the spell. If you mill it off my deck, yeah, theoretically, it was never in my hand. It's not a real card. Like when you look at pros, they're like, dude, the card that you milled or the card that goes to the bottom of your deck or whatever is not a real card. You never had it. Just objectively don't think about it and move on. But emotionally, that's a card I could have cast and it could have done something. I didn't put cards in my deck to throw them away. I put them in there to play. And if you kill it once it's in play, hey man, fair game.
Yeah,
But if you stop me, then I get real salty.
yeah, I could deal with mill. I could deal with mill because a lot of my decks have greater recursion of some sort. So
You're
I
like,
could,
please help me.
I don't mind. And even then, if I'm playing with 100 cards, unless you kill like that one card I dearly love, I have 100 cards. I can deal with it. I'll play something else.
Mm.
But counter spells, I hate them because I don't get to play them. I don't like exile spells either because they don't go into the graveyard. I put exiles in some of my decks, but I only use it against those who play, what I consider powered cards.
Sure, like that's the thing. Exile, I'm a little bit less like sad about because I understand some of my cards definitely need to be exiled. Like I get it. This card is going to be bad news for you if you don't exile it. If you let me have it because you know that thing's coming back, or I'm going to combo off it, or something gross is going to happen. Fine. Exile is just like tapping me on the wrist and saying, "Nope, you don't get to do that." I I appreciate that because that's showing respect to the card. That's showing respect to my ability to be like, I have chosen this card, and you're like, no, you don't get to have that one because
Yeah,
I know what that's going to do.
yeah,
A counter spell just feels like, I got
yeah.
2 mana free.
And
You
then
don't get to have it.
and then board wipes, yeah, I'll put a couple board wipes, but I try to use board wipes that have some other effect, like Blood of the Snow, where you bring back something, or you
Oh God, I love that card so much.
ways to kill planeswalkers instead of creatures, and widespread um, oh,
Devastation, widespread was it? But yeah, anyway,
widespread brutality, because that's for my amass deck, so that I amass a huge zombie and then the army kills everything.
widespread brutality. You're digging deep, man.
I always do. I always do. The next deck I'm building is Dedry, the editor.
Oh yeah, of course it is. That's like your
Well, it has to
lifeblood
be.
right there.
I've been an
That's your
editor for
job,
23
man.
years. I need to make that
Like
deck.
that's literally your title. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just look at these things and I'm just like, look, I play token decks, but also I know Wraths because I have to play Wrath because of the fact that if you've got a ton of big creatures, my 1/1s are not going to get through unless I wipe them. I can make more 1/1s, and I would rather you didn't make bigger creatures. But speaking like broadly, What has it been like for you to try to jump into Arena new? Like, playing things like Standard or understanding the different formats or the rules even? Like, have you had any real, like, stumbling blocks in trying to come into Magic?
So I do have a couple stumbling blocks, and these are more about my philosophy of gaming than
Hmm,
they are about Magic itself. The rules of Magic are pretty clear to me, but I've been playing. I've played 18 different RPG systems over the years.
mhm.
I've played, not just tabletop, but video game systems. I have expert level understanding of the English language and where root words and things come from, and I know the AP style book by heart.
Sure,
Uh, I used to
as we
know
all.
I used to know the Chicago manual style by heart, but I that has
Thankfully.
lapsed. That has lapsed. But so the mechanics that I always have trouble with are the mechanics that I find when I play Commander that come outside of Arena.
As in, like, the older ones?
Older ones, or like right now with this new set, Baldur's Battle for Baldur's Gate. It took me a while to figure out backgrounds.
Well, backgrounds are brand new, so that's not your fault.
Hmm.
That's just new information to understand.
Yeah,
They're not easy to grok immediately.
yeah,
Like, I mean, even I, who's literally it's my job to know this stuff inside and out, right? Like, to it took me a few seconds to figure out how that actually worked, but it, I don't know where I stand on backgrounds. They play really well in the limited environment, but I just am tired of having them have more crap in the command zone. Like, Partners was bad enough. I love Partners, but then I realized how exploitative that is. But Partners being bad enough, and then Companions, and then Backgrounds, and it's getting real crowded in there.
yeah.
Um,
But my thing is more standard.
hmm.
I have a hard time playing standard because I want to do fun things with fun cards. And standard looks at you and says, no, no, no. You have to play good cards. They might be fun, but they're good. Or you have to play the good cards that are not fun. And
Hmm.
I don't like that. So my issue with standard, I made Mythic once.
Really? I haven't even made Mythic.
Oh, so when
Mainly because I know that getting to Mythic is more a function of time. It's like eventually you will just grind your way up to Mythic. I just don't care enough. Like, I spend more of my time playing the limited or doing like the weirdo side events on Arena than playing actual like grinding to standard. Because and also just like I would rather be playing Minecraft or like Pokemon or paper Magic.
I did it once to prove I could do it. It was with Innistrad, and
Mm,
I just had a black zombies deck, which I took, the best of the current zombies plus the best of the Innistrad zombies, and it was a little different, but there were some zombie decks running around in standard at that time,
yes.
and so I just jammed it and I said, okay, you know what? I'm playing 10 games a day with this deck. I'll do it on my breaks. I'll do it after the kids go to bed. That's what I'm doing, and I did it. I got the mythic. I could say I get the mythic, and never again. I haven't barely
You have
touched standard.
solved the problem. You
I
got the
barely touched
award. You're
standard.
done.
Then it's because I there's certain cards I really hate, and the cards
Hmm.
I hate are those that I feel are overpowered for their mana cost, or like Goldspan Dragon before it got
I love
nerfed.
Goldspan
Oh, I
Dragon.
hate that stupid card.
Oh, it's one of my
I
favorite
hate
cards of
that
all
dragon.
time.
I hate the way it looks at you and mocks you. It looks like it's mocking you.
Okay, well, look, my current favorite commander deck is a treasures deck. Goldie is like my, the all star of this deck here.
Yes.
I
It's a
like to
family
use.
broadcast, so I won't say what I want to say.
Look, I'm not saying the card is not heinous and unbalanced,
Hmm.
but also I love it, so I don't
Yeah.
care.
I hate it. I hate extra turn cards.
Well, everybody hates extra turn
The
cards.
only extra turn card I play in any of my decks is my Pirates deck. I play Time Screen Navigator because you have to do two things to make it work. You can't just play it and get an extra turn. You have to play it, it has to survive, and then you have to pay its mana cost for the ability.
Mm, I forgot. Man, you're using a bunch of weird in like Ixalan cards
Yes,
that
I
I
love
had forgotten
Ixalan.
about entirely.
So my favorite set since I've been playing is Adventures of the Forgotten Realms because D&D. My second favorite set is Ixalan. Why? Pirates of Dinosaurs. I love pirates. I love dinosaurs. I
You are
wanted
the audience for that set, because I was
I
looking at that like, "What is this crap?"
oh gosh, I love pirates. I and I love dinosaurs. I wanted to be a paleontologist. I pay attention to paleontologies. I
Sure.
read their books. I love paleontology, and so I always try to play with dinosaurs when I can. But sadly, a lot of the really good commander dinosaurs are very powerful, and that turns me off.
I mean, some of them are really cool though.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
there's the
Gilsoft is cool.
yeah, and like I love the like Galta or
Hmm.
some, I mean, look, the dinosaurs, at least they feel like dinosaurs. They're
And they're
big,
expensive.
scary dinosaurs, right?
And they're expensive. But my issue is I just you'll hit your head against decks that are so tuned that it's like, okay, well, I know exactly what the player wants to do as soon as they play their first card, and there's no mystery there for me. I like facing mystery when I see something. And yes, when you're playing a
It's hard to
commander,
get novelty in these games though sometimes because of the
yeah,
fact that
oh no,
uh, the meta is so solved and the internet exists.
yeah, yeah, and when you're playing a meta, that's the way. But you see that in other games of metas too, not just card games. But that's the metas for League of Legends or the metas in Valorant and stuff like
Mm.
that. So you don't see those surprises in big multiplayer games, and that's just the nature of them. But you also get that on tabletop too. If you're playing competitive with like Star Wars Armada, which is the ship-based game, or
Mm.
if you're playing, Warhammer,
Warhammer.
they have metas too.
Yeah.
So that's been my big thing about standard with Magic. It's dealing with the meta versus my desire to have fun against the meta.
Mm. That's fair, because like, for me, the only times I delve into standard, I've realized this because I was looking over the last few, the last decade, I guess, of my Magic career, and I was like, the few times I've built a standard deck have been times that I can build basically an infinite combo or some kind of just like turbo combo in standard. Like in Kaladesh block, I got to build this infinite Thopters combo using Whirler Virtuoso and energy and doing all these shenanigans to make a billion Thopters, give them haste and attack. And then the next time I built a standard deck was to do the blood on the snow deck, so I could wipe everything with Lolth and bring back
Mhm.
Ren and Seven or whatever from the graveyard and do all these combo things. I loved that. And then now the Naya Runes deck, which is another just turbo combo, put a bunch of Voltron-y things and go attack. Which is, I realized, I'm like, oh, of course I love this deck. It's literally playing Commander in 60 card
Yeah,
format. I'm building a
yeah,
Voltron and punching you in the
yeah.
face.
The one thing, okay, so my whine about counter spells, the one thing I really appreciate about blue is it's a bluff game when you play against blue.
Mm,
And I love that until I see the counter spell. But this is going to be very interesting for me to articulate because it sounds like a bunch of BS. Caught myself. But you sit there and they've got 2 open mana, they got 3 open mana, they got 4 open mana. Okay, do I want to play this card and bait out a counter spell? Do I want to play this card and hope they don't have a counter spell?
mhm, mhm.
Do I want to play this card that's purposely weak and see if they'll counterspell it or let it go, and then do I want to play the next one? And for me,
Yeah.
that's how I've learned how to have fun against counterspells.
But see, that's like, that is one of the funnest. I mean, that's how you get used to the idea of having your spells counters. Like, okay, well, now I have to sequence my deck and sequence my turn and be like, okay, I know that they've got potential to have a force of will or a free counter. Like, when you get to that tier of player and you're like, they have a removal spell in their head, or they have a counter spell, or they have something, and that negotiation you have to do of like, do I bait it? Will I waste my resources playing this one card, or am I just going to pretend that I can't? Like, sometimes you have to just sit there and go like, I can't beat it if they have a counter spell, so I'm going to play as if they don't because I have to do something. And you throw it out there, they counter it, and you're like, well, got. But sometimes you're like, aha, I baited them, and now I can come in from the side and play it, and you feel really good.
Yeah,
And I think that tactical kind of back and forthiness is one of the things that makes Magic such a compelling game.
yeah. It's for me, it's like chess and risking pawns, or risking knights, or risking a
Oh yeah,
bishop.
you're like, I'm gonna throw this obvious bait out there.
Mhm.
If it succeeds, great, I'll love it. If it doesn't, I knew what was going in.
Yeah,
Like I'm okay with you killing this one thing so I can play this other thing.
yeah. I have too many tells to bluff in poker. I just can't do it. I don't try. Um, but you can get that bluffing in a game like Magic, and I like that.
Yeah.
But it goes in different ways too. I found that with playing with, say, somebody who has a creatures deck that's, say, Bolos, and they don't have a lot of burn spells, but they have a lot of creature spells. It's like, okay, so what am I going to do to try to stop their onslaught of creatures, even though I don't have removal? What are my options going to be? I know they're going to play a creature card next turn. So do I try to keep onto this one removal spell I have, or do I put out a chump blocker, or do I sit there and say, okay, well, if I play a couple artifacts, maybe I can build for 2 turns away, and if I have enough life, oh, I do have enough life, I can take a couple of hits in this next couple rounds. Let's see if I can make my plan go.
Yes. That's, I think, the fundamental core of being a Magic player. And one of the things we're seeing is there's a sea change right now in Commander, especially, where people are like, yo, look, right now, the way I want to play, we're getting this weird bifurcation. One is the lower tier, more casual way of play, which is like, I want to build out my board state and do all the cool things, and I'm very, very sad if you start nailing my resources or countering my spells or doing things that disrupt the plan I've got, because it hinges on every card working exactly the way it is. And then the other side, which is the very heavy, high end, competitive style play, which is like, I have one combo in my deck, 85 ways to get that combo, and the other 25 cards are things to stop you from stopping me from getting that combo or stopping you from getting yours. And then there's a whole lot of just back and forthy like interaction and tweaking and strategy. And they're both entirely viable ways to play as long as I'm building my machine and I'm destroying everything you do, aren't sitting at the same table trying to play each other. Right?
Yeah,
Because that's where the sadness comes. Because the one person's like, all I'm trying, you keep killing everything I'm doing and I can't get off the ground. And the other person's like, you're not doing anything and I've got all these cards that stop you. This is not fun for me. Let's have some back and forth. And it's fun for nobody. And that's my current existential crisis, is trying to figure out how to solve that problem. But
it's good you bring it up, because I experienced this the last time I played Magic with you.
mm,
Remember playing in the shed? Um, I
yeah,
was playing your Grid deck,
yes,
and I'm sitting there going, okay, I don't know these people very well other than Shiva. Is this okay to kill things? Is it okay to remove things? Or do I want to let them play around?
mm, that's a
And
fair thing, right? Like,
yeah, and I think if you have a very good, you know, discussion before you start the game on everyone's decks and their approach to the philosophy of how they play, I think then you can have a very satisfying experience if everyone's being honest. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way. This is why I so desperately want to play more Commander, and I want to go down to my local and play, but it's like, oh, okay, so what's the conversation's going to be? And I'm sure they're going to be fine, um, but I don't know, and so I got to figure that out.
well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, that's why there's this emphasis lately on this pre-game conversation that we have, the Rule Zero conversation, which Commander took straight from D&D, right? Like,
Yeah, that's
which
where
is,
it comes from.
yeah, it's exactly where it comes from. And the idea of being like, okay, let's sit down and let's decide what kind of game we want to have. And then we can be like, okay, look, that's not the game you want. I will pull a different deck out and we can play it. Or, hey, you know what? It's the end of the night. We've been playing for a long time. Everybody pull out your haymaker decks and let's just go ham on each other. Or, like, look, I want to have a more relaxed way of play. I don't want to be worrying that you're going to try to nuke me. Let's try to sit and play a little bit more fair and more fun. And it doesn't have to be so extreme. Obviously, interaction is fine at every level of the game. It's just, maybe don't like stone rain my one land. Like, if I've got like, or like, maybe read the room is kind of what it is. Like,
Mhm.
hey, that person over there has been stuck on lands, hasn't been developing their board. They've got nothing on the table. Yes, it's a smart and right move to attack them because they're open. But maybe also let's be sociable and say like, okay, this table is much more relaxed and much more social oriented. Let's give them a second to catch their breath, figure out, and come back into the game. And I'm going to focus my efforts over here where you've got blockers, but I can still meaningfully have a game with you instead of just picking on the person who's not doing anything, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing I've noticed about playing Commander is that it reminds me of a job, in that you need to talk about expectations. When
Yes.
I assign a story to a reporter, it's like, okay, this is what I envision, and these are my expectations for it. Go to work, but let me know what your expectations are, and let's see where we meet.
Mm.
Or it's like when I sit down with an interview with someone, it's like, here are my expectations for the interview. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to be on the record until I say we're off the record, so that we all know exactly where we're at, and where it's going to go,
Right. And there's no
from the
like
beginning, so that there's no gotcha moments, or
exactly.
like, hey, wait a second, you never said that. It's weird, but you,
Well, no, that's exactly it though, because like you're making a very salient point, and one of the reasons, like, I'm obviously I run a show called Casual Magic. I am one of the loudest voices for playing relaxed, fun time Magic, but I deeply, deeply admire the CEDH high end players because they have a tacit understanding. They're like, when we sit down to play, we all know that our goal here is to win as best we can to stop the other person from winning, and we will not have any like hard feelings if you come and disrupt my combo or if you jack me, because you know that the second like I got the chance, I would do the same to you, and we will do our hardest to try to destroy each other, stand up, and still be friends at the end. And I respect that because they come in with an even footing, and like there's no like gotchas here. There's no weirdness. Sometimes in the more casual end of things, it's like weirdly enough, it's a little bit like left wing and right wing in politics, right? Like the right wing is very much gather our wagons. We all have a unified philosophy and a unified idea. And the left wing is like, I am fighting for 35 different kind of options here. We may or may not be on the same agreement level, and it's going to be hard for us to get our infighting out of the way such that we can actually unify to do a thing. Similarly, the casual side of Commander, you end up with a lot of people who are like, I've got a different expectation, a different desire out of the game, and we are not at the same, we're not on the same page, so this is not going to be fun for either of us, even though we're both ostensibly casual players. um
yeah,
and so it's
I,
just
I look at it like marriage. And the thing that I have learned the most about my marriage, and it doesn't apply to anyone else's because it's my marriage, but maybe it's something you could take from mine, is the more I communicate,
take my wife, please.
the more I communicate about, this is what I expect going into X, and is that fitting what you're looking for your expectations, honey? And the more we talk about that, the more enjoyable everything becomes.
Right, it is. I mean, but one of the other problems is, again, going back to our D&D discussion before, people who play Magic a lot, we tend towards the introverted, towards the harder to communicate, towards the more anxious ridden people who are not like good at these kind of conversations. And it's hard to be, because some people are native people pleasers, or like they subsume their own desires because they don't want to cause a ruckus. And one of the rules committee members, Toby Elliott, and Gavin Duggan on the rules committee as well, they both will say things like, look, it is better to not play Magic than to play bad Magic. Like, it is better for you to just get up and say, like, this is not the game I want, than to sit there for 2 hours and suffer, right? Like, don't. Nobody's tying you here. There's nothing on the table. If this is not the game you want, then just find something else to do.
Yeah, and I understand social anxiety. I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from sometimes feeling awkward in social situations. Few people realize that about me because I'm out there. I'm a reporter. I'm an editor. I'm talking to people every day. So how do I overcome that? Well, besides medication, I sit down every day and ask, okay, what are my expectations for a social experience that I know is coming up? What do I want to get out of it? And I try to apply that to the way I play games.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very important. It's very like communication is one of the most important parts of this kind of like, because 60 card Magic and arena and stuff, they handle that baseline for you. We all know the expectations
Mm-hmm.
going in. There's no hard feelings. We're here to kick each other's butt and move on. Casual play, you have to have this negotiation because it's not just a game of Magic, it's board game night, or it's like social night with cards. And at Richmond, I was thrilled to see that there were so many people having these conversations, sitting there, and I could see people like, okay, well, I'll just pull this other deck out instead, and then we'll have a great time. And then they proceed to have a great time. Like, it's simple communication. It means that we're all on the same page. Then we can all avoid being pub stomped, because the only thing that matters is people having fun, right? People want to. My goal is that you get up from the table, feel like that was a good use of my time, and I would do it again, right?
I
Win
have
or lose.
I
That's what I
have an
want.
alternative goal, but I also want to have, make some sort of connection with the people I'm playing with.
Sure. Man, it's tough. It's like a challenge, especially since Magic has now become in the past 10 years, like there's been a sea change and this social driven format, which is weird because like when I was coming up playing Magic in 1994, 95, whatever, the way we played was like 12 of us would get together in math class and just throw down one big giant ring multiplayer game. Or like every time I remember playing, yeah, we would play one on one, but more often than not, we were just playing gigantic group games of Magic. So coming to Commander was like, this is the Magic I'm used to playing with my buddies and having super casual. So I have a hard time adjusting to single player because I'm like, I'm not used to not being able to just BS
Yeah.
while we're playing.
Yeah, so
Um,
my when I was watching people play Magic when it first came out, you would see people playing in cafes, or you'd be seeing people playing in, you know, study halls and stuff like that back when I would still be around colleges. And it was all one on one, or my brother and his best friend, who the best friend was a poker pro. So when they played, it got serious.
right.
So for me, I've always been around either a combination of people who played it very seriously or people who are playing it very casually one on one.
Hmm.
Until I met you.
I am definitely like the most relaxed way to play Magic there is. Like I will. I mean, if you want to play Cutthroat, I've got Cutthroat, and I will sit there and we can smack each other in the face all day long. Cause I'm fine with that. That's what we're here.
The other thing is, what's interesting with my experience of Commander is I've played the most Commander games with my kids.
Mm,
They love it, one more than the other. The other would rather play with smaller decks.
sure.
Um, the older one loves Commander. The younger one loves playing smaller decks. But what always happens is when it gets to the scheming and the political stuff, they always huddle together. They never
Mm.
scheme with me.
Ah, why would they? You're dad, man. You're the enemy.
but then one of them will eventually break whatever pact they make, and it's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And
this is
then
part
suddenly
of.
there's hurt feelings all over the place.
There's hurt feelings all over the
Dad, he
place.
promised he wouldn't attack.
Yeah, and there've been a few times where cards get thrown, and it's like, okay, let's put it all away. Let's put it all. So you guys go ride your bikes or something.
What's it? So what's it been like trying to teach them how to play?
They've taken to it very well. But at the same time as they've been learning Magic, they've also been learning Warhammer and D&D,
Hmm.
and of course they've been playing video games for years. So they've kind of grown up around these kind of concepts, and we're a board gaming house, so we've been exposing them to even more advanced children's boards games since they were young. So,
Hmm.
so they're used to that. When it comes to their commander decks, one likes one likes to be sneaky with things. My older son, he likes to do things where it's like, okay, you have to play A, B, C to do D, and then I come at you. Whereas my youngest kid just wants to play dragons.
I
And
mean, I'm with him,
yeah, he wants to be able to play big, powerful dragons that do things. But in their
man.
individual,
Tiamat, right?
yeah, and he, but when they have their small decks that they've made for, we'll try to play standard together. Well,
Sure.
not standard, but
Well, even
kitchen table
60 card
magic,
casual.
60 card casual kitchen table magic.
Yes.
One built in a mass deck because he thought it was so cool, and it's like, oh, zombie armies are so powerful. Well, not really, kid, but they're fun. Have fun with it. And then the other one wanted werewolves because he loves dogs.
Fair. I
Eh,
mean, there's a lot of dogs in the game now.
yeah.
Like you can make a Rin and Seri deck, and like
Hmm.
there's a lot of actually really good dogs that have come out
Yeah.
in Magic. It's
But
kind of ridiculous now.
what's been great about teaching my kids magic is that makes me understand the rules better.
There is no way to learn better than teaching somebody else because then
Hmm.
you have they ask you questions and you're like, oh no, I don't know what happens when those two cards run into each other. I better figure it out. Like, I mean, ironically, when I started on the Commander Advisory Group, I was loosey goosey with the rules. I mean, playing for 30 years, I know the rules, but I didn't know the rules. But in like the 3 years since I've done this, I have become very, very like locked in with the exacts of Magic system, because
Yeah, it's
people will
like,
come to me with really bananas questions, and I better have a credible answer, or I'm going to lose all credibility, right?
yeah, it's
And
like I'm sitting here and like, oh, this has priority over that kid. So Benjamin, you get to do your thing first, and I'll just get to do his.
exactly, man, this has been a really solid conversation, and we didn't even get to talk about Baldur's Gate.
Okay, well, okay.
Hit me.
I have two gripes about the set, and
Go
and
for
then and then I'll get them out, and we'll move on.
it.
Number one, I do not like having the gem dragons because gem dragons aren't in Baldur's Gate. They aren't in
Thank you.
they aren't
Thank
in the
you.
games. They aren't in the books. They
They're
aren't
not in
in
the friggin' Forgotten Realms.
they're not in Murder for Baldur's Gate, which is the precursor adventure to 5e that was set in Baldur's Gate. They're not in. So for those of you who do get stuff on the Dungeon Masters Guild, there's a fantastic set of books uh, for Minsk and Boo. One is Minsk and Boo's Guide to Villainy, another one is Minsk and Boo's Trinkets, and they're not in those. So no gem dragons. Gem dragons are cool. I
As a
like gem
Dragonlance
dragons.
fan, I hate gem dragons anyways
They
because
don't belong in.
they
They
don't
don't
belong
belong
in my setting.
in this. And second, I'm a little disappointed with some of the companions that were chosen for this set and left out. I can understand,
Look,
you
you
know,
need MON.
yeah, but I was hoping Edwin Odyssean would be in because he is a great foil, and while he isn't the best companion and he's a total asshole, he would be that great red wizard commander.
Hmm. They had a lot of legends in the set, though. Like, they
Yeah,
got a lot of people in here. I mean, one of the things that I found a little questionable is why would you go out of your way to make brand new characters when there's so many characters you could have pulled from?
thank you.
Like, I mean, I
I'm
get
not
it.
happy about that.
I'm like, I'm indifferent to that, but I'm also like, you could have found a way to put Jarlaxle in there. You could have found a way to put like any of Drizzt's other like really classic baddies in there.
I want to know who on the design team hates Regis because,
Rangers?
huh?
It's Rangers?
No, Regis,
Oh,
the
Regis.
halfling, because the
Regis is
rest of the companions are in.
Regis is boring.
Yeah,
Regis is boring.
well, in his reincarnated form in the recent books, he hasn't been boring. But it's like I don't get why Volo gets a card in this set when he just got a
Yeah,
card in
why?
Forgotten
Like,
Realms.
I don't understand why there's two Volos, why there's two Minskin
Yes,
Boos.
I don't like Minsk and Boo as a planeswalker. That's
I talked to Corey Bowen, who is the lead designer of the set, and I'm like, why would you do that? And he's like,
yeah,
look, Minsc and Boo are the most iconic characters in Baldur's Gate. We had to have them Forgotten Realms because they're one of the most iconic characters in the realms, and we're not going to have a Baldur's Gate set without Minsc and Boo. And I'm like, okay, fair, but why is he a Planeswalker? He's like, look, Planeswalkers are also just the cool highlight cards. Let it happen. And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't like it,
yeah,
but I will let it go. But
yeah.
I don't like it.
But there's some really cool small things. And I'd argue that this character isn't a Baldur's Gate character. However, I do like her inclusion, Amber Gristle Amal. She's from Salvatore's books, and she is one of the characters, a side character who is a friend of one of the people who are around with Drizzt Arthur Gatti, the dwarf, and
hmm
she gets killed eventually. Oh, sorry, spoiler.
Spoilers for a book that came out in 1998. Come on.
No, 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 no. This book came out like 6 years ago.
Salvatore's been writing books for as long as I've been reading books. So,
Salvatore has been writing books a very long time, but this is one of his newer characters, and sadly it died. But the flavor of that and getting that, and then you've got the new characters from Baldur's Gate 3. That's fine. I'm totally cool with that.
I think
And
this
then,
was actually meant to be a tie-in to BG3, but the delays of the video game and whatnot.
well, the game is not delayed as much as it's been out, and it's been coming together slowly because that's how Larian does its games when it goes into early access. It took a long time to get the final chapters, final acts of Divinity original Sin 1 and original Sin 2, and it was
Oh
worth the
god,
wait.
yeah.
My advice is if you played through the most recent content of Baldur's Gate 3, set it aside, don't play it again until the second act or the final act comes out. That's just the way I would do it. But I love there's a badger in this set. That's great. I love that, and I have to do something with it because it's a badger. They got an Onkeg in here. I love Onkegs.
You know what makes me sad? There's
Yeah.
no gnome that talks to the badger. Like, that is a first edition cliche, like, whoa, right? Like, before Dragonlance introduced gnomes, the only things that gnomes were good for was talking to badgers. And it's like, they sucked so
Yeah.
much.
So we have to talk Dragonlance at some point because it's you.
Well, if
Dragon.
WotC ever puts out a Dragonlance set, I assure you I will be there.
Oh, all I'm gonna say is Dragonlance made gnomes cool.
Look, it's because of Dragonlance that gnomes in all of gaming pop culture are cool. Because before Dragonlance, gnomes were dumb little like underground dryad things that talked to badgers, talked to small animals, and did like nothing really. Dragonlance turning them into engineers gave them an archetype that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And then like every other gnome in pop culture, in Western pop culture, from WoW onwards, has basically been like Tinker Gnomes. We're going with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love it. Like, I mean, we even got a gnome in Commander Legends, the 3-color dude. Oh, what the hell is his name? Jay something. Jan Jansen.
Yeah.
The Chaos Crafter.
John
Janssen.
Johnson, his little bombs that he makes for Baldur's Gate 2. One of my favorites. Always in my party.
Exactly. A super good card, and also going to be the new commander for my treasures deck because it's a Mardu guy who sacks an artifact creature to make treasure tokens, or sacks a non-creature artifact to make constructs. I love that. I love that character. I love that it works so perfectly. If flavor fits, it makes me happy.
I have one last complaint about this set. I don't like the Orbs of Dragonkind because they seem to be associated with gem dragons and not with chromatic dragons.
Yeah, but that's because they also had the Orb of Dragonkind in Forgotten Realms, right?
Yeah, but it was just one Orb of Dragonkind.
Yeah, I know, and it irks me. Yes. But also at the same time, though, these look the way that Margaret and Tracy would have described the Dragon Orbs in Dragonlance books. Yeah. So I'm kind of like super there for that.
I love the art. I love everything except the names.
I just hate gem dragons. So I hate psionics, but that's because I'm a Dragonlance fan and I've got hangups. I understand that. Save your letters.
My thing is there's a great place for gem dragons, and it's called Eberron.
Eberron or Planescape or Spelljammer or literally anywhere.
Anything but the Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk or
the Dragonlance or Dark Sun, I guess. Dark Sun doesn't have dragons really anyways.
They have one.
Yes, but that doesn't count. That doesn't count. You're not running it. Oh, I would love a Dark Sun Magic set. That would be so cool.
I would rather have a Spelljammer set first.
I think I would rather have anything that's not a Forgotten Realm set, honestly. I think Planescape would be amazing.
Yes.
I think Planescape or Spelljammer would both be absolutely stunning to do in Magic because it fits the milieu. It's planes. You're teleporting between them. There's also... Anyways, but that's my rant for another day. This has been a lovely conversation, Jason.
Yeah, that's it for my rants.
Yeah. I mean, look, I got to play a lot of Baldur's Gate this weekend, and I got to play it the week before for the pre-release. I have problems with the set, but I also love the set.
I bought 2 boxes. I never buy 2 boxes.
Dude, the cards are sick. And for old heads like us, this is, especially, think about it, you and me are the exact cross-section. People who've been playing D&D for most of our lives, people who've been playing RPGs for most of our lives, people who know the Baldur's Gate games inside and out. This is made for us, right?
Yes, this is totally made for us. And it's like, I haven't bought a box since Adventures of Forgotten Realms. And so I've decided that I only buy boxes when it's a set that I must have the cards of because they speak to me in a flavor sense, not a mechanic sense.
Yeah. I mean, I want to collect them just because I love D&D. And this is a great D&D set. And
I can use them in D&D.
Yeah, like I was actually thinking about taking these cards. Like I remember when I played a one-shot game when AFR came out that my friend was running, and she dropped off a bunch of cards to each of the players from the AFR set, and they were like, "These are your magic items." And I was like, "What a clever idea!" Yeah. Or you could even use one of these decks to like do random encounters or whatever.
Yeah, Yeah, and
I
you
think
get
it's
your
hella fun.
monsters, you put on a little standee, and you don't have to worry about buying a
Exactly.
$3 miniature.
It's so good. It's so perfect.
Yeah.
Um, they really did do a I mean, it feels to me like this is the culmination of those wars in the 90s. Like, finally, D&D and Magic are where they belong, hand in hand, and, I love it. I love it, and
Yeah,
I
this
hope it succeeds.
when you see this and you see things like the Strixhaven book, which
Mm,
I think was a fantastic Dungeons and Dragons
yes.
campaign.
The
Um,
Strixhaven, they did Ravnica too and some other ones, but
yeah,
they're really, really
Ravnica's a
well
good
written.
book too. I don't care for Theros as much, but
Theros was more of like a proof of concept,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the Strix book was
Yeah,
fantastic.
but I think it's great to see Magic and D&D crossing over because not only is it good, let's face it, it's great marketing and it's great financially, but it's good because it speaks to those of us who have an appreciation of both, but also helps get one group into the other.
Hmm,
And whenever you can get crossover between two different products of your company, that's a good thing.
that's true. Ah, man, what a good set. You should come over and we should jam some games sometime, man. It's been a
Yes,
minute.
yes,
And I need to have a game day anyways. I'll bring Gavin over. We can all have like our local fun time.
sounds good. After I crack some packs.
Yeah, it'll be good times. But in the meantime, though, if people wanted to find you or find your material, your writing stuff, I will link to this article later. Where could they go?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at Jason_Wilson, all undercase. Look for my face. That's
Yeah, because
turtle
they can totally see
standardized.
your face on the radio.
And then, or you can see me at my day job where I'm the esports editor for Sports Business Journal. We do have a paywall, so you can get a couple articles, but our best, some of our really big news I will make free because I have the power to do
I
that.
have the power. Um,
Yeah, and then if you want my old D&D and Magic stuff, you can find it at GamesBeat, where I was the managing editor until.
GameSpeed. I still love GameSpeed, man. It's such a good site. All of my friends have worked there. Um, and as always, you can find me at Gearpuri Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. every Tuesday, or at YouTube sometime after Tuesday. Um, and remember, my friends, it is not magic without the gathering, and we will see you next time.